Everybody, let's take 5 minutes out of our day and meditate on God's Word together. If you plant a tree in your yard, you kind of have an idea of what it's going to look like. But what if you planted what you thought would be a shrub in your front yard, but it turns out to be the biggest tree in the neighborhood, bigger than all the houses, bigger than any tree? That's a little unexpected, isn't it? Well, Jesus tells us a parable that has a similar unexpected ending. In Matthew 13, verse 31, he put another parable before them, saying, "The kingdom of heaven is like a grain of mustard seed that a man took and sowed in his field. It is the smallest of all seeds, but when it has grown, it is larger than all the garden plants and becomes a tree, so that the birds of the air come and make nests in its branches." Now, the first thing we have to address is what he says about the mustard seed. The mustard seed wasn't then and isn't now technically it's not the smallest seed. It doesn't produce the biggest tree or plant either. We have to have a little caution here. We're not even really sure exactly what plant or what seed Jesus is even talking about here. So technically, this isn't the biggest one. We have to remember, this is a parable. It's not an encyclopedia entry. Jesus is just generally saying there's a really small seed and it grows into a large shrub. But there's still hyperbole in this parable. It's still exaggerating the results here because you have a small seed that produces not just a large plant, but a really large plant. Now, most shrubs, if this is the kind of plant that we think it may be, most of these shrubs would grow about 4 feet, some as much as 10 feet. But still, even then, the birds of the air wouldn't make nests in a shrub like this. But they would make nests in a tree that's bigger than anything, basically. Well, the point seems to be here, the kingdom of heaven starts small, but it becomes something surprisingly great. This is just one more parable where it emphasizes that gospel paradox. By saving your life, you lose it. By losing your life, you find it. Jesus, by dying on the cross, saves us. So also, our perceived weakness and smallness is to God's glory. You think about the disciples of Jesus. You think about their weakness. They never really seemed to get it, did they? When Jesus explained things they didn't understand. When he was raised, they still didn't quite get it. They would argue about who's the greatest, showing how small they really were. But later they were empowered to be great witnesses for Jesus. But in that great witness, they were still deemed small by the world. In Acts chapter 4, there are these ignorant fishermen who are teaching us about Jesus. We shouldn't be distracted about what others consider to be great. The greatness of Jesus wasn't seen in great displays of power. It's in the cross. Jesus, in fact, would push away and push aside those estimations of his power based on glory and splendor. His cross, his crown, is a crown of thorns. His glory is his suffering. So we have to remember that. Our lives take meaning when we let them go. But this greatness isn't just for our glory either. It's for a mission. He says in the parable that all the birds of the air come and make nests in the branches of this tree. This parable is alluding to a dream King Nebuchadnezzar had in Daniel chapter 4. He dreamed that his kingdom, Babylon, was like this great big tree, and all the birds came to nest in them. But he was disappointed, however, when he found at the end of his dream that the tree was cut off and it died. Jesus seems to be telling us that his kingdom is the true tree. His is not one that uses force and coercion and power like Nebuchadnezzar's. If you live by the sword, you die by the sword. Rather, his kingdom is one that will flourish and live forever. This challenges our fortress mentality. It challenges the idea that we are the gatekeepers to the kingdom. Birds don't need gates. They just fly up to it. And the kingdom of heaven is like that. Anybody who wants to come into the kingdom of heaven, when they recognize the peace that God offers, they can come and take it. Jesus offers freedom and forgiveness and safety for all who will accept that. The kingdom of heaven is open and available for everybody who enters. But this gospel inclusion challenges our pride. It challenges any feelings or ideas of superiority we may have, like a certain Pharisee had. We'll talk about that next time we take 5. I'll see you then.